Okay, so welcome all to today's session. In today's session, we will cover how we can integrate the GitLab and complete the CI part. So this is overall agenda, but this is not it. I think updated, so let's skip it. Okay. So now what we need as a prerequisite. So yesterday's session is a must, so we should have a Jenkins already installed. Inside that we should have a GitLab plugin, and on a GitLab we should have an account created and also a project. So for project we can take the project which we created earlier for our earlier session. So probably you can take this project. You can just check out this project and you can just create a new project in GitLab and push this change or this project into the GitLab. We can also do it with GitHub, but we are choosing GitLab because GitLab is mostly used in organizations where they have a on-premise deployment of a GitLab. So you can also repeat same thing with GitHub, but GitHub might have a different options or different naming convention for each and every steps, but conceptually it is almost similar. Okay, so this is the flow which we are going to cover today. So we have an account on a GitLab. We will just push some changes to the GitLab, and this would trigger our Jenkins job, and Jenkins job will basically perform the CI steps, send notification back to GitLab, and send notification to the developers using a email notification basically. But email notification we might not be able to do it, but I will just show you how we can do it, because we don't have an SMTP server as of now. Okay, so here in developer side, what we will do, we will create a merge request, and that merge request will basically trigger the Jenkins job which we will create. And once that Jenkins job is successful, it will send a successful response back to the GitLab, and then GitLab will allow this merge request to be merged. So merge request is nothing but a code review request where you tell like this is my feature branch, and after everything is successful, you can merge it to the particular target branch. So if Jenkins job fails in between, then you won't get the merge request option. For that you have to basically fix the whatever the issue is there, and then resubmit the merge request. Okay, so this is the overall flow of our CI. Probably we might not be able to cover each and every step, so I think this is already we have covered, but let me just quickly go through it. Okay, just a second, give me, I think let me just mute all. Okay, so this is overall flow where developers checks in the code to the Git or Git based SCM tool. In our case it is a GitLab. Then Jenkins detects the changes, or maybe Git pushes the notification to the Jenkins, basically triggers it, and then Jenkins basically can perform these different multiple steps of the CI. So one could be the static code analysis, another can be JUnit, basically unit test cases, executing unit test cases. Then it could be code coverage. So for example, like in yesterday's case, we used the Jacoco core code coverage of our Java code. Then it could be some security tools for checking the what you can say vulnerabilities in the libraries which we include in our form file, Maven dependencies, or even those kind of things. Like if we talk about the previous example which we had seen. Then we can also add up quality checks. So quality checks, to some extent we have already seen, like how we can um, pass or fail a particular job based upon the unit test case or code coverage criteria. So there are other quality gate plugins also available, but this, like you can just try and play with it. Then you can trigger compilation and packaging of your code. Then you can store your these artifacts or these binaries which are generated to some artifact tree, and at the end you can send a notification, as well as you can send a notification to the Git. So this is a very high level continuous integration or CI steps for a particular Java based project or maybe Angular based project. But still, many of the things will remain same even for other types of project. So we will try to cover some of the aspects of these in today's session. So okay, so let me just come back to the our job, and let's try to reuse the same job which we had created earlier. Okay, so let's create a new job, because this job we had created with a GitHub, but let's create a new job for a GitLab. So GitLab Integration CI free job. Okay, so I already
your screen is not visible.
My screen is not visible. Okay, fine. I think some of the things were not shown. Okay, so now can you see it now? Okay, so I have not done anything yet, so I'm just creating a new project. Okay, let me just do it again straight away. So this is the project which I'm going to create. Okay, and here we need to add a GitLab plugin. So probably let me just check if we have a GitLab plugin available. GitLab, then GitLab hooks we can use GitLab authentication, GitLab API. Let's use some of these others. We don't need it, but let's see. Just let them install. There are so many plugins, but you can just check their existence, like what is their use case, and does it fit into your goal or your CI procedure which you want to achieve. Okay, so let me just go back to the GitLab. So this is a GitLab. I will be using some of the example here. So let me see which example we can choose. Okay, so this is the project which we will use. So it is nothing but it's a Java project. Okay, so Java Maven JUnit project. Hopefully this should pass. I've not yet tried, but let's see. So now it is just installing the last one, and let's come back to here, configure. Okay, so GitLab connection, like once you install the GitLab plugin, you have to define this GitLab, because this normally what happens, like when you are pulling something from GitLab, you can just provide that URL in this particular location and it will pull it. But when you want to send a notification, or you want a full integration, in that case you have to integrate your GitLab in a at a system level itself. So I hope it is in a configure system, or let me just check. Not in global tool, it would be in configure system. Okay. You can just ignore these things. I don't know what is the problem with this Red Hat. Even increasing the RAM, it is just getting stuck. Okay, so no issue. So here we can just provide the your GitLab thing. So here you need to provide like just a label to your GitLab. But if you have a multiple GitLab servers, in that case you can provide it. So it can be just like global or your public GitLab. So like if you are using a public GitLab, in that case your Jenkins should have a public IP address which it can basically which GitLab can directly call. So that's the one of the requirement for complete end-to-end integration with the GitLab. So here we need to provide the GitLab URL. So GitLab URL, let's see. So here we don't need to provide a project. It is just this one. Okay. Then you can provide you have to provide basically a GitLab. So basically here you need to provide a GitLab API token. So first get the API token. So you can just go to sorry, preferences, or where is the security? Let's see, no, not here. Here it is the access tokens. Okay. So here you can just create a Jenkins access token. Okay. Then you can provide what would be the expiry of this access token. So let's say till 21st July. So maybe you can just create or set the expiry based upon your visibility of your project. Then you need to give the access of API, read user, all the read permissions you can give. Write permission is not needed. So this last one is for the Docker registry, which we don't want to, we are not going to use. So let's skip it. Then you will get a token which you need to basically copy it, but you will not be able to see it again. So you have to just paste it somewhere. Otherwise, you have to just directly consume at a moment itself. So let's create it. So here we have to choose here GitLab. So yesterday when we were seeing, we were not seeing the GitLab options here, but now we are able to see the these options here. So there we have to provide the personal token. Okay, because here we have created a personal access token. Okay, paste the token, access token, just use the access token. Okay, add it, just skip it. Okay, API, oh sorry, we need to provide the API token. API token. Let me see if we can create a API token or what. So I think it is the same thing. Let me just create. So somehow this nomenclature is not that good. It is very confusing. So now here you see it. Okay, then you can test the connection whether the connectivity is okay or not. So now auto detect, what is the problem here? Let's remove the project and see. Okay, so here it just need a GitLab connection. So now the connection is successful. You can just save it. Okay. If you have a multiple GitLab servers, then you can configure those things, and based upon your project or your job need, you can choose connections. Then okay, now let's go by the PPT. So first is creating a access token. So generally it is known as access token, but now they have started calling it as API token also. So both things are okay. So this is what we have already created. We have set the expiry and use it. Then we use this personal token, copied it, and created a Jenkins credential in the server. So you can just configure while creating a job itself, or you can just go to the credential provider, and there also you can create this basically you can create a credential with this access token. Okay, then this is what we have already created in a job. We have done the we have tested the connectivity with the GitLab with this access token. That is all okay. Okay, so now the next step is to configure the Git source code management part, where basically the our job should be able to pull the code directly from the repository. Okay, so now for this we need a okay, projects, go to the projects, this one, we need a URL basically. So here if we see, we need a git URL. So git URL has to be the same as you pass with the git clone. So let's use this one. Okay, provide the GitLab access token. So let me just create a new GitLab credential. So it is just a username and password to access it. Okay, so writing a description basically helps in when you have a multiple credentials, then it becomes very easy to test it. So now if you see here, now connectivity is all okay. So by default all the errors are now gone. Okay, so now this job will be able to pull code directly from this particular repository, and basically this particular project from this repository. So inside a repository you might also have a basically in GitLab account you might have a multiple repository. So basically eDevOpsGuru is our GitLab account, and this eDevOpsGuru 2020 is one of the repositories there. Okay, then the important part here is for integrating with the GitLab. So what happens, GitLab when it triggers the job, so basically if we just go back to the build triggers, so as we discussed yesterday, there are 2-3 different ways where you can basically trigger your jobs. Basically your job can be triggered. One is either your job polls the source code management or GitLab correct at a fixed interval, or you can have a script which can trigger this particular job, or you can just build periodically, every hour or 2 hours you can just trigger this job and it will build. And third part is basically where you can let GitLab to call your job via this particular webhook. Okay, so so in this webhook, when you have to provide whenever this Jenkins call it, so Jenkins provides some of the parameters automatically, like for example, some change is pushed to a branch. Jenkins job will not be able to understand to which particular branch change was pushed. So what happens, like whenever GitLab calls this webhook, it passes some of the parameters to the GitLab in a JSON format. So basically it's nothing but it's a post request on this particular webhook, and in the post body it provides lots of other parameters, like which job which branch it was checked in, what was the commit history, comments, like all other commit ID, for example, so many, and who did the checking. So those many parameters are also passed. So in this job we will use some of those parameters for uh, like for our job. So basically, so if we see here, repository would be same, but branch might change. So what we will use, we can't put a static job here, sorry, static branch here. It has to be we have to use a branch to which actual push has been done. So how we can get it? So if we see here, so GitLab provide some of the parameters in the request, which all starts with a GitLab. So let me let's use it for now, then I will show you how it works. So let's copy this same one from here. Okay, so let's use this branch. So whenever something is pushed, or a merge request is raised, GitLab will pass this particular branch, and we will use this particular branch for pulling out the code and compiling it. Okay, so this is the first part. Then next part here is let me see.
Where is this variable git source lab
I will just show it.
or it's a standard convention?
We don't have to provide it. So GitLab provides this variable. So let me just complete some of these parameters, then I will just show how GitLab passes these parameters and what other parameters GitLab passes. Okay, good. So then let's say keep these items as it is. We will fine tune them these little later. Then okay. Then here is a secret token. So secret token is nothing but a what you can say, this is the protection for this webhook. So whenever GitLab calls this webhook, this is the what you can say API token, or whatever what you can say, like token which needs to be called by the GitLab. So let me just show it how we can okay, let me see if something else is left. Okay, so this is where we have to get the token. And okay, so let's go to the GitLab here and see this thing. So here what we have to do, we have to go to the settings, correct, and then to the integration. So though you can directly go to webhooks now, but in some of the cases, old cases, you still see this option in integration. So here you will see it, but you can go to the webhooks, and here you have to basically configure the webhook. So webhook is nothing but a external REST endpoint which you need to call it from the GitLab. So let me just copy this REST endpoint. So basically this is the REST endpoint, okay, of our Jenkins job particularly. Then let me copy this token also. So if you just regenerate this token, or if this token is refreshed or like is changed, then you need to change it to this webhook also. Okay, so let's disable this SSL because our Jenkins doesn't have a SSL, so it's just HTTP. Okay, so here if you see it, these are the different events which you can on occurrence of these events you can call the Jenkins job. So one can be push event, another is like if somebody pushes a tag, pushes a comment, correct? So those many of things. So but for our importance is mainly the merge request, but for testing we will just enable the push event also. Okay, and add a webhook. Okay, so let's save our job and let's see if till now integration is successful or not. So what we will do, you can also test the your webhooks here. So let's see if we call a push event. Okay, now this should trigger a job on our Jenkins. So let's see, let's wait for it. Okay, oh, web execution failed, execution expired. Let's try it again. What is the issue? Hook execution failed, execution expired. So is this URL okay? Let's check the URL. 15 dot this one. Let's open it in a browser. This particular URL has to be accessible, only then the GitLab will be able to access this particular job. So why this is not 15206? Oh, IP is different. So okay, that is the problem. So why is it showing a different IP address? Okay. Okay, probably what happened, like since we are not using, I will just show you tell you why it is happening, because we are not using elastic IP address. So GitLab is still using the old IP address which was there before we actually this is a URL or IP which we configured yesterday. So we need to change this to the latest IP. Okay, so this is the IP address which is not correct. Let me just replace it. The correct IP address. Well, when you are testing, definitely you will get a some static IP address. Or otherwise, if you are testing with with this AWS instance, then you can also use a elastic IP address. Okay, now let's see the webhook IP address. Now it is updated. Okay, let's try to open it also, so that connectivity is all verified. So somehow this is not copied. Okay, okay, there is some mistake in the entry. The slash is not manage Jenkins, configure system. Let me use the same IP address, that would be better. Okay. So now it is okay. So now let's go to the configure, copy the URL now. this particular URL, okay, and edit this particular webhook. So here we can just provide the updated URL, save changes, then test it. Let's test a push event. Okay, so now let's see if our job is triggered or not. Oh, first let's see. Okay, now the webhook is successfully executed, and okay, if our job is triggered or not. What is the issue? Okay. So let's debug it why it is not working. So what we can go, we can go to the system logs, then check the logs. Okay, if we see here, it says this token might have just expired. So probably like we just, let me just update this token. Oh, this option is not by default selected. That is very silly mistake. Let's generate a token again, save it, update it, paste the secret token again, save changes, then test it again. Hook was successfully executed. Let's see if this time it works. Now you see it here, the GitLab has now triggered this job. So now you can also see the job has been started by GitLab by code push to GitLab. Okay, so if we just go inside and see the build information, so you will have the description. So this is a default description sent by the GitLab, and then you can just go and see the it has passed the parameters. But for seeing those parameters, if I just show you, then you won't be able to see those parameters, because by default the plugin for seeing those plugin is not enabled. So let's install the plugin for that. Let's see if we have the plugin name, that would be easy to identify. Okay, it is not there. Let me just search. GitLab environment. Yeah, I just forgot the name. GitLab. Okay, so I don't remember what was the name, but let me check parameters. I can just show what those parameters are. Don't see what is the parameter name, if we can get it. Okay, parameterize scheduler plugin is there. This is some different language. Parameterized. Let's see if we can figure it out. GitLab webhook. GitLab webhook. GitLab webhook we have already configured parameterized trigger. Okay, parameterized. Let me just search variable replacement Jenkins plugins parent. I'm not sure if it is the same plugin, but let's see if we have something. Generic webhook. No issues. Let's move forward now. I will just see if we can figure out some other way. But these are the variables which are generated by GitLab and passed to our Jenkins job. So basically, like whenever it calls webhook, it passes these parameters. Okay, so we will come to it later, but for now. So if you see, like now we have enabled one way of communication where GitLab can trigger the our Jenkins job, correct, and it can pass the parameters like branch and other things. Okay, then okay, next is let's say we will not add the CI steps for now. Let's add a very simple step. Okay, let's say echo hello world. So let's assume like this here we define our whole workflow of our Jenkins. Like it will have all the CI steps and correct. And we're just trying to simulate the simplest thing. And at the end, what now we want? We want to send the status back to the GitLab, telling whether this job has succeeded or it has failed. Because based upon the status, we can basically configure GitLab to whether the whatever the changes has been pushed, they are good to go or not to go. Okay, so what we will say, accept GitLab merge request, or we can also use publish build status to GitLab. Okay, so here if we see, so you can use it same. Okay, and then save it. So now if we see here, now we are sending a response back to the GitLab, but GitLab need to use this status to do something. Okay, what is that to do? Let's see it. So now if we go and see the general. Okay, so now as we have seen in an earlier session also, we are using a merge request where merge request is nothing but a code review request. So if I just go back to the example here, so this one. So as soon as somebody developer checks in a code, he sends a merge request, which is nothing but a code review request. Okay, so we are going to use our Jenkins to verify whether what has been checked in or what is has a merge request has been raised, whether the code inside that merge request does it qualifies all the quality gates, does it is it compilable, is it passes all the unit test case, does it have does the code coverage properly, all those things. And if everything is okay, then we can either say to merge the code, or we can send an email to the reviewer that this code is ready to review, and then the reviewer can review it and merge it manually. So that is the overall flow which we are targeting. So for that, what we need, like GitLab need to consume this response, okay, and so if we see here, here we should have the merge request. Let me just check where does these options just keep on changing. So let me just see if it is not here. Okay. We can just go and check it on ours. Okay, so here it is in the settings and in a general, and then merge request. We go settings, we go to general. Okay, so here we have a merge request. Okay, so if we see it here, so what we want, merge options. So here we want merge request to be merged only when the pipelines are succeed. Okay, so pipelines are successful, and also all the comments in the merge request, they are all resolved. So okay, so let's so I think by default all the options are enabled. Okay, so now let me just raise a merge request. Okay, then we will see it. Source code is the okay. Let's go in a proper way. Let's create a feature branch as we saw in earlier sessions in a branching strategy. So let's create a branch, new branch, name it feature slash code review sample, create it from the develop. Okay, you can also use a git flow, but since I am already very much comfortable with this, so I don't need to like I can just skip it, but for you can use a git flow examples. Okay, so I will just edit this example, add some extra line. I'm just trying to simulate like developer is trying to do some changes, and he pushed this change to his feature branch, and then he's trying to create a merge request. Okay, so code for review, okay, then assignee, it can be like any assignee, so whosoever in your like normally what will happen, a GitLab administrator will create multiple users, and these assignees have to be like who will do your code review. For simplicity, let me assign it to myself, reviewer, let me myself. Okay, so you can choose whether once a merge request is accepted, do you want to delete the feature branch or you want to keep it, or like let's delete it, or let's keep it for now. If you delete this source branch, then it becomes very easy to manage branches, because then all these feature branches which are temporary branches, they get cleaned up. But let's raise a merge request. Okay, now if we see it here, here now our job should be triggered. Okay, let's see, does it trigger our job? What happened to our job? Okay, it is not triggered. Let's check what happened. Okay, let's see what happened. So this is what we have already seen. Then did we enable merge requests? Let's try to debug it first, and then let's see what is missing. Let's go to the integration. Go to the webhooks. Okay, so this is the mistake which we did. Or let's okay, this is a sample. Let me just check. So here we have a push events and merge request events. So whenever something is pushed or some merge request is generated, so it will trigger this webhook. Okay, so ideally webhook should have been called, but let's see in the logs if we find something. Let's try to debug it from this point. Okay, so there are certain errors. So what is the error? Let's see. No credentials found for credential ID. Okay, so there is some integration issue. So if you see it here, it is calling webhook, but webhook execution when it starts, so it is failing. So in API token, it is saying like there are no credentials found for this credential ID. So let's go and try to debug it. Let me just keep it open. So open a new session. So first time when you are configuring these things, then you might face a challenge, but once this job is ready, you can just clone this job and create things yourself. The next time it is always easy. Okay, so if you see it here, it is saying that GitLab connection is okay. Then probably is it some issue here? Okay, let me just go back. CI triggered for merge request. Okay, error while serving this. No credentials for GitLab ID. So basically, this GitLab connection is trying to connect and it is not able to call it. So it's a API token which is giving an error. So what happened? Did we change the IP address? That time it caused some issue. Let's go back and check the our connection to the GitLab. Okay. Now test connection. Test connection is all okay. So now let's go to the job and try to build it manually. Let's see what happens. Is it able to pull code? Okay. So so as a debugging practice, what we can also do, so so if we just integrate with a GitLab in this way, then it won't be able to like run in manual case. So what we can add a hard code or like hard code branch. So what will happen if this branch is not there, correct, if this branch name is empty, then it will fall back to the this particular branch. So this becomes very important when you want to test or debug the your jobs. So now if we see it, let's see if there is some issue trying to pull the code or what. You can see it now. If you see it here, so now it pulled the code and it worked fine, but it is not So what it is saying, failed to update the GitLab commit status. So no credentials found for credential ID. So somehow we are missing something which okay, this is all okay. Advanced is all okay. Here we have to this is also okay. GitLab status. Okay. So there's some problem with this GitLab status. Let me check. So basically it is not able to send back the GitLab this status to the GitLab. So what is so sometimes these plugins they also like not doesn't work properly. So let me change because these are not properly maintained and updated. So let me just remove this plugin and use other plugin. Okay. So this is the one which we used earlier. So let's see if it works. Git publisher. Okay. Let's see what does it do. You can also check with the help. Okay, so let's see if it works. Let's run it. See, does it work? Okay, now it is doing something, but let's try it end to end and then see what happens. Okay, so go to the merge request. This is the one which we were it is still stuck in this thing. Let's push something again to this particular branch so that I can trigger the Jenkins again. So let's remove this extra space which we had created earlier, and now see this job gets triggered. Okay, now the job has been triggered. So probably there is some issue with that particular Jenkins plugin. So if we just go and see the log, so here the status is successful. Okay, now let's see how does GitLab sees it. Okay, so somehow GitLab is not able to read this status back. So okay. So by default, Jenkins, GitLab has its own CI/CD. So let me just see if we can. We need to disable it or what? So it has failed. This is the commit for which this pipeline was called. This is the pipeline. Let's see it. No related merge request was raised. This is the job which it triggered. It looks there's something missing. So it is still going to the local host somehow. So basically what is happening, what I think is like, it is not calling, somehow it is still calling its own CI/CD, which we don't want to use. Pipeline, public pipeline. Some of the times they just keep on changing the options. So just see if there is something else. Or there could also be problem with the this plugin which we are using. So probably it is not sending the status which we are supposed to like which GitLab is supposed to accept. So let's change this plugin and use other plugin. Okay, let's use this GitLab. This should, I think, work. So let's see it. Let's trigger job merge request. Okay, so I think there is already one merge request which is already pending. This pipeline is already pending. So let's stop this. So if you are stuck in this particular case, what you can do, you can just go to the pipeline and stop it. Let me see, where is it? No, it should be here only. Somehow it is not showing all the details. So generally it should show us the pipeline which it is running. Okay, let's try to push some change again and let's see how it happens. So these are all teething issues which you might face. Okay, so let's add a couple of blank lines, commit the changes to feature branch, and since we already have a merge request, so it should trigger the change. So if you see it here, we have a two changes, like two triggers. So first, if you see, first trigger is for the push, okay, because we have enabled push as well as merge. So if you see it here, now it has failed, but let's correct it first and then let's try to debug it. So if you see it here, here we have enabled two types of uh, uh, GitLab triggers. One is the push and one is the merge request. So that's why whenever we push some change, so it is basically triggering both the changes, push as well as merge request events. So but we just want a for it a merge request, so we will just disable this. Okay, comments we can also disable. This we can disable or enable, doesn't matter, because it is an enterprise edition functionality. Okay, so let's change it here and let's see why it is not why it is failing. So there is some issue with plugin, so it is not able to basically pick up the API token which we had created earlier. So what we can do, let's try to see if there is some issue uh, with the permission, so that we can also check. Permission wise it is okay, but it looks like somehow this plugin is not able to identify this API token and use it. So what else we can do? And let's see if there are some other plugin which we can use it. So this is the general problem when you work with a open source project. So some of the times in earlier sessions we saw they had pushed a Jenkins branch which was they had basically pushed a Jenkins war file which was not working, so that we were not able to configure the plugins. So now if you see it, we are not able to send notification back to the GitLab. So let's see what else we can use. This one we have used. So ideally we should use this particular plugin, and it should basically send notifications. So let's see. Okay, so GitLab connection is okay, but somehow it is not able to utilize it and send notification back. So but otherwise, like if it was working, then in that case you would have been able to see. Let me just show what it looks like. Go to the merge request. In the merge request, you would see this merge button enabled, so that like reviewer can approve it, and then it can be merged. So this is how overall it works, but somehow I think because of this plugin issue, it is not working. So I'm not sure, like we need to downgrade it or what, but I think you must have now got the idea how we can integrate with the GitLab and how we can test it. So let me just go back and check if we can what we can do it. Basically, maybe I can just refer some plugin version or some Jenkins version which is working, but here, okay. So this is the like how it works. What else is left? So I can just show the old existing maybe jobs which we had created earlier. So even here also it is correct. So I think it is still all generic issue. So but one thing which we can also do is like what I can show you. So what was this? General repository, sorry, general, okay, general merge request. So if I just disable this particular option, so if I just remove it, so in that way, if we just go to the merge request, you will see that this is merged. So like if everything had gone properly, and status from Jenkins was received here, then you would have seen something like this one. So like now you have an option where it can be merged. So approval can approve it, and then it can be merged. Okay. So one more thing which I wanted to show was like this particular account, as of now it is a community edition, but it is not a enterprise account. So some of the functionalities like you will not be able to see. Like for example, you might be able to you won't be able to basically assign this particular merge request to more than one approver. So that is, I think, okay, because that is how it works. And in many of the organizations, they people still use the community edition, so it would be like this one. So there is also one another option where you can also use is the thumbs up and thumbs down functionality for the code review. But this also is available for the enterprise edition, so we will not go it, but I will just show it like if you assign a merge request or code review request to multiple approvers, so the approvers can just review it and give it a thumbs up. So similarly, like as a reviewer, or like as a process, we can also integrate our Jenkins job, and in Jenkins job, when everything goes okay, then we can add this thumbs up status here to the, let me just show where is the thumbs up. Yeah, as a add a vote to the field, you know? So what will happen, like when Jenkins will see it, like it has received all the thumbs up, only then this merge request will be enabled. So that can also be one way of, like, integrating the GitLab with the Jenkins, and integrating the code review comments. Okay, so that is also there, but this is a, like, a paid feature. So, but in most of the cases, it will be the way which we did as a, like, kind of a hands-on. Okay, so any questions till now? So okay, so this is, like, I had it for today. So let me just stop recording.